Hello, I'm Penny Thornton and I'm talking astrology. On this video, I'm going to be talking about Pluto and the solar eclipse of the 20th of April. And I'm going to be looking at it sign by sign, so we get a little bit more of an individual feel to it. In my previous video, part one, I talked about the general implications of what this configuration is all about. And of course, there's a lot more material on there. If you haven't actually managed to get to that one yet, I'm sure you'll find a lot of interesting things there. So let's start at the beginning and have a look at why there's all this sort of really hoo-ha about this forthcoming alignment. It is very important. The reason being that this is the first time that Pluto has been in Aquarius and has squared the nodal axis for many years, almost 250 years. So in that way, it's different. But Pluto itself has squared the nodal eclipse in 2014 and previous to that as well. And if we look back at that particular period of time, we can get, it makes quite a good reference point, because when we think about 2014 and that year and the major events of that year, I come back very much to the idea of Putin invading Crimea and actually annexing it in 2014. So we've got a real resonance with that as we are here in 2023. Also in the October of 2014, there was a solar eclipse. It was opposed to Uranus. Pluto was in there as well. And that was a particularly controversial month. And certainly the period around the eclipse itself was very explosive for a variety of reasons. Again, I've gone into all that on my previous video. So I think what I wanted to look at here before we get into sign by sign is to give you a sense that although it's a very important, significant development, it's happened before, but of course we were different people at a different era. So things will be different this time around. And of course with Saturn moving into Aquarius as it did in 2021, Jupiter into Aquarius at that time, followed by Pluto, we really sailed into the early waters of Pluto in Aquarius. So it is very significant that at this period of 2023, we can really start to see how all the pieces of the jigsaw are being kind of rearranged at this point. And it's a very, very stormy period. That's why we're going through such a lot in terms of the planet and such a lot individually. So let me also look at the idea of what Pluto is before we get into the nodes. Take the keywords of Pluto: transformation, elimination, death and rebirth. And by death and rebirth, we don't mean physical death. What we mean is the end of something. It's no longer it's no longer with us. So out of that empty space, new things must be born, hence rebirth. But my favorite word for Pluto's process is really reformation, because everything is reformed. We sometimes have many of the same pieces, but they've all been thrown up in the air and they've come down in a different form. And we're looking at the reformed land. Of course, we're meaning that as a metaphor, the reformed landscape of our lives. And many things that are happening in the world right now will continue to go on, are that process. Things being thrown out, things being thrown up, coming down to earth and reformed. And that will really help you understand the process that's going on. It's quite healthy. Another good Pluto word is purge. Getting rid of things, getting rid of toxins, getting rid of stuff that's just bad and reforming it, bringing it into a better place. But it's not something that's going to occur in April. That's it. Started, gone through, finished, all by the end of April. No, I'm afraid not. We're probably going to see a big part of the process in this April-May period. And from there on, it will go on for some time, I'm afraid. This whole idea of society and it's in its reformation. We're going to be seeing the financial world really reformed. And one of the reasons I'm mention finance is the fact that the nodal axis, which I'll talk about in a second, is Taurus Scorpio. That is the financial axis, and it's why recently we've had this turmoil in the markets, real jitters. Banks have failed, the cryptocurrencies are on the floor. So there's a lot of fear and anxiety, and of course that in itself breeds problems and crises in banking. So we're seeing that taking place already, and it may have to get worse before it gets better. These are the general kind of implications of all of this. The last time Pluto was in Aquarius was in the late 1770s. So it was just after the time that America declared its independence, but right the way through the 80s, well, 1779, 1780, 1781, 82, 83, Pluto continuing its journey through Aquarius. There was a lot of revolution and reformation. And in fact, the monarchy was only thrown out officially with the Treaty of Paris in 1783. So although independence was declared by America, 1776, it took quite a lot of years for that whole process to be complete. And revolutions and battles were going on throughout that time. So that is a parallel to this time as well, that we are going to be seeing a lot of conflicts in one way or another in order to get to a better place. And of course, society is being reformed. This is why we've got so many upsets and divisions in society. And coming back to America again, America and its Pluto return, exact last year, but it's hovering around. It's going to be there throughout this year and right the way through, really, till the election of 2024. You see how America is being reformed with a lot of societal upset. And in fact, right now, some 3 weeks before this eclipse, which is when I'm recording this, Donald Trump, the former president, in a history-making decision, has been indicted. And we can already see without, we don't need to be an astrologer to see that this is going to be a very divisive event. And we shall most certainly see a lot of upset around this period. And another thing that I need to affirm here is that although we're looking at the 20th of April for this solar eclipse and its square 90-degree angle to Pluto, there may or may not be events on that day, either in your personal life or on the world stage. And you may think, oh, well, so much for that. But it's not like that, I'm afraid. We're already feeling the effects of that solar eclipse. Eclipses have long timelines and stretch right the way through to May and June, if not a little bit longer. The signature of the eclipse will be on the great and important events that take place in 2023, and they will be reformational. That's what we want to think about. And I'll talk a little bit about personal stuff shortly. Let me say something about the eclipses as well. Again, I have discussed this on my previous video, but the nodal axis and the north node, the south node, they're not planets. The nodal axis is the point at which, and the opposite point, where the path of the moon meets the path of the sun. And I've got a little diagram here, which might make it a little bit more real for you, because they're not planets, as I say. Now, funnily enough, in Vedic astrology, the nodes are considered to have characters, Rahu and Ketu, and they have sort of, different properties. What we say in Western astrology is that the North Node is really the direction of traffic for your life. This shows where your focus is meant to be, where your destiny might be, for want of a better word, although you probably want to look at the whole chart for that, but still the nodes form an important part of showing you your destiny. So that's where we need to focus and where we experience things that are part and parcel of our destiny. The South Node is where we've come from. We've done that, been there, got the t-shirt. But in a funny kind of way, we like going back there because it's comfortable. We've been there before, we know it. Now, very often the things that are represented by the South Node's position are things that are bad for us. It's like comfort food. It's not very good for us, but we like doing it. So there has to be an understanding of where the path of least resistance is and where the direction of traffic should be in this particular life. So we can come back to me again. And what I probably want to indicate at this point really is about the nodes, where the nodes are. The nodes I have just mentioned in Taurus, the north nodes in Taurus. Why the nodal axis is significant is that eclipses take place on that nodal axis and near it or in the vicinity of it, not always bang on the button, but within the vicinity of that. And eclipses are game changers, and this is something that was observed by the ancient Babylonians thousands of years ago, who actually accurately were able to predict eclipses, which was important for them because they showed when important events were to take place: birth of the king, death of the king, plague, pestilence, wars. Usually those kind of things, it must be said. So that's why the nodes are very important and why they have a kind of destined and fateful aura about them. Now, the North Node has been in Taurus for about several months now, and it moves backwards through the sign. So it's getting further and further towards this kind of early degrees, which is why on April the 20th, the sun at 29 degrees, 58 minutes, right at the very, very last breath of Aries, is in fact where the eclipse takes place. But within minutes, we're into Taurus. And of course, with Pluto at 0 degrees of Aquarius, 90 degrees away from the sun, that's why we're calling this eclipse a solar eclipse, the Taurus influence with its square to Pluto. So the next, really, since last several months and going forward into, the latter part of this year, we've got that Taurus nodal axis in operation, which is why the eclipses fall around there. You may have been born with the North Node in Taurus, and if you were, the last time the North Node was in Taurus was in 2003, May 2003 to December 2004, but it was also in Taurus between September 1984 and April 1986, March 1966 and April 1967, August 1947, and January or through to January 1949. So if you're born in those years, then you're having a nodal return. And that means the 18 months since the node was moving through Taurus, which means you've got about another 6 to 8 months left. A very significant year. Some of the more significant life events will occur to you on a nodal return. But just as important is the fact that if you have your North Node in Scorpio, you will have your South Node in Taurus. And because the lunar eclipses are falling on this axis, it's right in your kitchen as well. So we're looking at the last time the North Node was in Scorpio, the South Node in Taurus, a very significant period of time. We're looking at that September 2012 to February 2014. And if you were born between February 1994 and July 1995, July 1975 through December 1976, October 1956 to May, quite a long one, of 1958, then you have your North Node in Scorpio, South Node in Taurus, which means for you, these 18 months, the past 10 months or so, going forward another 6 to 8 months, this is why this has been a hugely significant period of time. Now, I want to come back to the idea of Pluto again. And when I was thinking about the action of Pluto, Pluto is the god of the underworld. And so a lot of things about a Pluto aspect, a transit, and certainly the nature of Pluto squaring the solar eclipse is about its dredging up stuff. So it's dredging up stuff from the past. So there's a real echo of events that may have happened even hundreds of years ago, as we think about the USA, for instance. And in our own lives, things from the past are coming back to be reviewed and the situation to be reformed. And so we think about this process going on. And I was thinking to myself as I was putting together what I wanted to say, and I was thinking the perfect tab to this would be draining the swamp. This is what's happening when events are being brought up from the past, when situations that have been left to fester have to be looked at. They sometimes don't smell very nice. And this is what we're all going through. I don't care who you are, you're going through it. There's some aspect of your life that's either touching on the past or touching on your past, touching on something you didn't resolve, deal with, you've left to fester. It's coming right up now in your face, and it has to be dealt with. And if you are still looking at me and saying, nah, not me, everything's cool, this process hasn't finished. So don't be surprised when something comes up from the underworld and really is quite difficult to confront, but confronted it must be. So without more ado, I think I need to go through all of this sign by sign so that we can really see what the issues are, where you're at, and give you a real heads up so that this period can be, at the very least for you, transformational and reformational in the best possible way. And even if you are going through terrible things, and I know from my clients how truly awful this has been and is continuing to be, that there's no quick way through it. You just have to go through it step by step. Okay, so let's kick off with Taurus, because after all, you are a Taurus and the North Node is in your sign. It isn't quite the same as having a nodal return. I have to say it's much more impactful if your North Node is in Taurus, because of the nature of what the nodes are and what they mean in your chart. The very fact that you're a Taurus and the North Node is moving backwards through your sign is significant. And these eclipses that are occurring, and the one coming up on April the 20th, may very well be the time that you get to realize, my goodness, this is a game-changing event. What I would say before I get into you, Taurus, is that generally everybody, if you have planets and points, that means the angles of the chart and planets at 0 degrees of Aquarius, Leo, Taurus, and Scorpio. But let's stretch that out a bit. So we go back to the cardinal signs, sort of 27, 28, 29, Aries, Libra, Capricorn, Cancer. And we'll go up a little bit in the fixed signs to 1 and 2 of Aquarius, Leo, Taurus, and Scorpio. You're right in the, in the center of what's going on at the moment. We may be looking at the idea of things happening that may be of a challenging nature, but their intention is good. Once you come through the other side of them, life will look different and it will be better, but it's the getting through it that isn't very nice. So yes, let's step back. Let's start with Taurus. So here you are, Taurus, you've got the North Node moving backwards through your sign. And there will be particular periods when something hits the planet, the sun, whatever it is in Taurus, and you will get some kind of period of maybe about a week or two that may be very stressful, even if the events that are causing that stress are really, really good. We think about getting married or having a baby, which are the two great things that most people think of having in their life. And even though they're wonderful things, they're painful, aren't they? I mean, giving birth is painful. And also weddings, they definitely bring their share of stress. So we don't have to be looking at bad events per se. We're just looking at a period when events are causing you stress. Now, when we look at Pluto, for you. We're looking at Pluto in the 10th house. So we're looking at Pluto's journey through this area of the chart and what it's doing in terms of you as a sign. So this is all about your goals. This is all about where you're headed in life. You as a person are one thing. Where you're going, who you want to be in the bigger sense, both in the sense of, do I want to be a nurse or do I want to be an engineer? That's your role in life. That's where the 10th house is pointing to. But we also have all sorts of other things in this area, which are to do with how we want our life to be. What has it got in it? Where do I want people to see me? You know, and what is the life out there I'm going to have? So Pluto is beginning its reformational journey through this sign, through the 10th house. If, as I said, you've got planets in the early 0 to 2 degrees of Taurus, then my goodness, you're going to feel it right now. And you're going to be able to point at incidents that happen that are going to change the shape of your future. They're going to change who you thought you were going to be and what you thought was going to happen to you. This can be a very good thing. It doesn't have to be a bad thing. But because it's different, it's not welcome. I think we have to remember that, and especially Taurus as a fixed sign. You don't like change very much. You will change, and you do change. But the change you like is the sort that you bring about yourself, that you decide to do X, Y, and Z. And so you start it, and then it goes forward. Still a bit scary, but you've at least decided you're on board. When something happens, lands on your doorstep and says, sorry, can't go there anymore. That isn't happening anymore. I'm sorry, that's all over. That's when it becomes very difficult, because you don't want to let go of your hopes and your ambitions and the things that you wanted in place, the things in your material world, particularly, that you wanted to have in place. No, that's not there. Aspects of that aren't there. So you have to rework them and reform them. The whole secret of this, in a funny kind of way, is to relax. Let go. You can't change what you can't change. That's it. The only thing you can change is yourself, your outlook, your opinions, those sort of things help to go into a period and, you know, get a situation the way it's going to be, because you decided that you're going to have to do something different. You yourself are going to have to change something. Then it will all be better. So don't be surprised if, not necessarily on April the 20th, but around this time, especially if you are one of the birthdays I just mentioned, that something happens, like the business you have isn't there anymore. The job that you thought you had isn't there anymore. Some of the pillars of your life that you thought were going to be there for you, especially pillars of your material world, they're not going to be there because they've got to be rebuilt. But that's the attitude you need to have. We're going to build it bigger and better. That's the positive aspect to have. If we come to Gemini, the next sign, then all this is happening in your preceding sign, which means it's happening in the 12th house. And it's a little foggy in the 12th house. It may be that April the 20th and all of April and May and perhaps a large part of this year for you isn't anything special. Nothing. Unless you've got planets and points 0 to 2 degrees of the fixed signs, 27 to 29 degrees of the cardinal signs. Then, of course, you're in the mix. But you may feel, oh, nothing extraordinary has happened, neither great and good nor absolutely terrible. In fact, life is just the way it is. Life is life. But because it's in the 12th house, it's happening at root level. It's happening perhaps under wraps. You can't quite see it. So there are things going on around your world, around your life, that are the seeds and the developing factors of things to come. And that is going to amount to great change in the future. Now, we could also say, with the solar eclipse being in the 12th house, that you need to look out for things that you can't see. So if there's anything that's worrying you, whatever it is, whether it's finances, a relationship, your health, for instance, then this is the time to take the lid off and have a look at what's in there. You know, if you've got an ache and a pain or a funny feeling, you know, the eclipse squaring Pluto says, you know what, you've got to look into this. May not be serious, maybe just fine, but it's causing a worry and you need to look at it. So that's important. Take notice of signs and signals this month, at the moment, going into May, June. Signs and signals, no matter how minor, could be portents of something bigger to come. Now, of course, for you, Gemini, we're looking at Pluto in the 9th house. So it's just beginning its journey through here. And this is all about where you will be 5-10 years down the line. So we're looking at something to do with your yearnings in a way. It's like, you know what? In about 10 years' time, I'd like to be living by the sea somewhere in the world. And I'd like to be with chickens and, you know, that's it's not your dream exactly, because it's more than that. It's an aim. It's like, yeah, this is what I envisioned for myself 5-10 years down the line. So Pluto is going to set about changing all of this, whether that's because of events that happen, even global events. And let's face it, with the climate dilemma that we're in, all sorts of things that we may have had linked to where we might want to be in the future in terms of countries and places, that may change because the climate has changed. So that might be something to put in your thinking cap. But I think also this area of the chart is about knowledge. It's about the acquisition of knowledge. It's about searching and seeking. It's about exploration. So really, this period of time, we're talking around the time of this solar eclipse, and it's square to Pluto, is a time of discovery. And it can be a time when you're awakened to something, awakened to the need for knowledge, awakened to the need for a journey, whether that journey is in miles, experience, emotion, feelings, whatever it is. So this is a very powerful kind of awakening to, it's a discovery, I think is perhaps a better word. You know, using the idea of Pluto and the underworld, what's coming up to have a look at, is the idea that there is something to be explored and something to be gone through, and it has an effect on your long-term horizons, your distant horizons. And even in the short term, it may be that a journey in miles is going to play a part in this process. It may prove challenging, the journeys you make in miles, but it's the journeys you make in knowledge and experience and understanding and feeling that's where the real discoveries and growth and change, transformation and reformation are going to take place. If we come now to Cancer, we're looking at this solar eclipse taking place in the 11th house, with Pluto being in the 8th house. Now, this is very interesting because this is going to really affect, I don't want to say survival in the sense that you'll start to think you've got to fight for survival. No, I don't. But it means that aspects of our existence that are central to our survival are really being exposed by this solar eclipse in square to Pluto. So this might be finances, Pluto in the 8th house, of course, one of the financial houses. Also in the 11th house, the solar eclipse has to do with collaborations, has to do with the things that we do with other people. It has to do also with our hopes and dreams and the things that are central to those things, central to the survival of hope, if you like. So this solar eclipse is about an awakening to perhaps a state of affairs that you should have been alerted to before, but you weren't, either because you didn't notice it or because you didn't want to notice it. And the time has come now to look at it very much in reality. It may have a financial element to it. Maybe you've been doing something because it was you know, the way finances were going to be organized, but now something has happened and therefore that's not going to be possible anymore. So you've got a bit of a financial challenge because of something that happens, perhaps in regard to a collaboration, an enterprise, maybe even your own business. You've got a bit of a crisis here and it's going to affect your finances. Now, this doesn't mean that you won't find a great solution and actually make things better for yourself. Well, that is the outlook that you want to have. But to get there, you've got to give up something. Remember, that's all really to do with Pluto as well. It's the letting go of something. It's the recognition that something's gone past its sell-by date. So maybe a collaboration has to be let go of. Maybe your business dream isn't working the way it should do for one reason or the other. The people involved, the time we're in, finances, there'll be a whole host of factors that are causing you to reassess where you go from here in terms of collaborations, businesses, enterprises, creative endeavors, finance, and also a personal relationship may be in there as well. So all these ingredients are in play. And again, I have to emphasize, don't just think that if nothing happens on the 20th of April, you can breathe easy and just go forward. No. That's the point at which everything is exact. But you're in the ballpark now and will continue to be. So it's important to be alert to that. You know, you're a little frightened of change, Cancer. When change happens, you can really get behind it, and you are an extremely initiating, strong, and capable sign. So there's nothing you can't manage if you have to. We know that you're a cardinal sign. But you don't like change. You don't like letting go of things that you've had for a very long time. And this may really be the challenge that faces you here, is to look at the past, is to look at things that have been there for a long time, to let them go if they're no longer fit for purpose or they themselves wish to go. And even if it affects your underpinning and your financial underpinning, this is what it has to be for the time being, but you'll come through the other side of it. If we come now to Leo, and again, most important, if you're an early Leo, 22nd, 23rd, 24th of July, then you've got Pluto opposing your sun right now. Or if you've got planets at 0 degrees to 2 degrees of the other fixed signs, you're right in that, right in Pluto's grasp, we might say. So Pluto is opposing this, your sign. So it's in the 7th house of relationships, and it is squaring the solar eclipse at the very top of your chart, the area of career and life direction. So let's think about a solar eclipse. It's a new moon, the sun and moon occupying the same space of the zodiac, but they're eclipsed because they're falling near the nodal axis. That's what's happening. So we might look at just a new moon in the 10th house and say, hey, guess what? A new job, a new challenge that's got working aspect to it. Or is there a change in your role in life? Are you becoming something that you weren't before? And of course, we can become a spouse, can't we? We get married, we become Mr. or Mrs. And if we have a baby, we become a parent. So there are all ways our role can change. It doesn't have to be related to our career, but it often is. And this is also one end of the parental axis as well, the midheaven, the 10th house. So we are looking at things to do with your parents, or one parent in particular. Even if your parents are long gone, you don't have any parents anymore, this eclipse connected to Pluto will take you back to your past. And some issues related to your parents or even your grandparents may come up at this time. It's going to be a whole buffet of possibilities, of which things like career, job, role in life, the material world, parents are all in this together. That solar eclipse is a signature on all those things. It's squaring Pluto from the 7th house. So a relationship, or you're a meeting with someone, or somebody is going to forge this awakening for you, or going to bring those elements of the past right up to the present. With Pluto in the 7th house, over the period of time it's going to be moving through the 7th house, you're going to meet a lot of powerful people. You may even marry a powerful person, but your relationships will be transformational. They'll be reformational. They'll change you, and they'll change aspects of your existence. So this is a period when this may become completely apparent to you. You see, I get it. I understand it. This is everything you said, and I've got it. The point is letting go. That's what we have to do with Pluto, is to say, you know what, this road has run out, or this situation I can't control. I can't control this. The only thing I can control is me, is what I say, what I do, what I think, what I feel. That's the only control I have. That's very hard for Leo. But then this is why you're being presented with the situations that you're meeting at this time, or as we go forward, you know, further with the course of this year, as I've mentioned on many occasions. Again, of course, if you happen to have the North Node in Taurus, and this is your nodal axis, my goodness, what a period of your life this is. This could be perhaps the most important period of your life so far, for good or bad. But one thing is for sure, it's going to take a lot out of you, okay, for good, okay? So if we move now to Virgo and we look at where this solar eclipse is taking place in the 9th house, and Pluto is in the 6th house. So the 9th house is the area of far horizons, and it manifests in so many ways, because in the 9th house we make journeys. So we get on a plane, a boat, a train, and we go somewhere. But we also make journeys when we learn something, when we experience something. And all journeys are important, especially when a solar eclipse is putting its signature on there. So if you're going somewhere, you're traveling somewhere around this time, April, May, even June, that journey is going to be hugely important. Maybe the journey itself is important, but certainly what you experience at the other end of it, at your destination, is going to be important. Remember, this is a journey in experience as well as miles. And we think of a new moon and new beginnings here. It may be that you will decide to live in a different country or a different state, because of what's going on at this time. And it may be, of course, because you've been somewhere, you've been on a journey, and you get to this place and you think, oh, this is where I want to be. Or an opportunity arises and it comes from another person or another company or a job, whatever it is, and it involves you going to live, even temporarily, in a different place. But not just down the road or in the next county, but far away. And so, of course, when you do that, everything changes, doesn't it? Your whole outlook changes. So that is something really, really to bear in mind about journeys, both in miles and in experience, what it's going to do to transform your outlook, your life, actually. And maybe because it's coming, Pluto involved in the 6th house, it may even give you a sense of, this is my life purpose. I get it. This is where I'm meant to be. This is what I'm meant to be doing. So now the tectonic plates of my life are revealing my true path, which is a wonderful thing. It may also involve learning. So this solar eclipse might be a point at which you get all the qualifications you need and you're off on your journey of life. But it could mean that you fail your exams and you have to figure out, where do I go from here? It may be that you decide, in order to get where you want to go, you have to have qualifications and experience And so this is where that journey starts. Again, it's all linked to this tie-up between the eclipse and also Pluto, the great transformer. If we come to Libra, we're looking now at the solar eclipse in the 8th house, and we're looking at Pluto there in the 5th house. So again, I think I mentioned this when I was looking at, I'm trying to remember which sign it was, but anyway, I was talking about survival. And of course, the minute I mention survival, it's like, oh, you know, am I in a shipwreck and I've got to survive on a desert island? Well, of course, it's not as extreme as that. It means that things that are essential to your survival, and everybody's different. Every Libra is going to have a different something or some things that represents survival. So it's these things that you may feel, I don't want to say under attack or under threat, but need to be re-examined because of changing circumstances. So you need to look at letting something go, how you will replace it. And of course, the difficulty is that you don't always replace something as soon as you let something go. In fact, hardly ever is something just replaced. It takes time to find the replacement because you have to move. You yourself have to, you know, make the journey to understanding and getting a replacement to the things that may no longer be in place. Yes, the 8th house is one of the financial areas of the horoscope. So this might have a lot to do with finance, and Pluto is in play. Does it mean that you'll win the lottery? My goodness, that would change your life, wouldn't it? But make no mistake, great as that sounds, you listen to everybody who's had a great win or had a great inheritance or made a great deal of money unexpectedly. They will have a story to tell you that is often laced with not very nice things. You learn a lot about people, a lot about yourself when something like coming into money happens. So this is also on the table, Libra. Not for every Libra, but it's one of the things that could be. But there's also the idea that, you know, health finances need reformation. So it may be that you come to the end of the road with a business, or maybe your debts have got out of control and there's only one thing to do in that case, isn't it? I talk about the 8th house as the house of receivership, really because of the idea of what we give and receive to other people, but quite literally receivership is to do with bankruptcy. So for some Librans, this is the prospect. It'll have to be met with honesty and determination. But of course, once you've got through that, you're free. You're free of the weight of those debts and burdens. And there could be other things that this Pluto solar eclipse setup does for you in the way of relieving you of burdens, even if the one thing you didn't want was to be relieved of this burden. The fact that it has been relieved is a relief. So these are all sorts of things to bear in mind. And be creative with how you approach situations at this time. Pluto is at the 5th house, the great creative house. Often it has to do with procreativity, children, creative endeavors. And at the very least, it's saying, even if children do come into the equation here of this Pluto solar eclipse event, be creative with how you deal with that situation or what you go on to do in the aftermath. So if we come to Scorpio, well, of course, this solar eclipse is happening in your opposite sign. It's taking place in your 7th house of relationships, but let's not forget the South Node is in your sign. So the eclipses of the last year or so have been playing a tune on your sign as well. So you may already have had experiences and incidents that have been life-changing. You've seen straight away, oh my goodness, my life has changed after that. It's different. And of course, when life changes, we change. We can't be the same people after certain events have happened. We can't put the genie back in the bottle if something difficult has happened. But we have to learn how to live with our new circumstances. Again, if we've thrown the pieces up in the air and they've come down to land in a different formation, we have to learn how to fit ourselves in with that formation. So for a lot of Scorpios, especially if you're born early in your sign, which means 23rd, 24th, 25th of October, or you've got planets and points at 0 degrees of the fixed signs, then you are facing some big changes relationship-wise. It could be that a relationship is over, and it may be a relationship of many years. Or it may mean that something happens and your partner, you're in a relationship, so the events happen to your partner, and you are there in the relationship dealing with what your partner is going through. So there is a kind of idea that, what doesn't kill you, cures you. And so the experiences that you go through in regard to a relationship at this period of time, and let's go back to last year, as well as going forward right through until the October, November of this year, because that's, the eclipse lifeline, if you like, or the nodal axis lifeline. So it is going to be a very eye-opening time for people. You'll see people in a different light. You'll see relationships in a different way. And because Pluto, your ruling planet, is attached to this solar eclipse, it's going to show you what's toxic about other people. You'll be aware that's a toxic situation. Why am I in this toxic relationship? Why am I in this friendship that's toxic? Purge it, get rid of it, even if it's going to kill you, to get, to remove yourself from that person or that relationship or that situation. That's healthy. Going forward, there will be new things that will take its place. This is the time. And also in reverse, in a different kind of way with this eclipse, new moon eclipse, new beginnings, it can be a new relationship. So that if you're single, or even if you're not single, eyes across a crowded room, someone you sense is from your past. You know that person. You sense a soul connection with that person. That's the effect of the nodal axis coming into play with the sun, the moon, and you've also got Uranus in your opposite sign as well, which is why there's so much going on in the area of relationships. It's compelling. Will you walk away from a whole way of life to be with this person? You may. That's the power of this eclipse. And even if you're listening to me right now and you go through the next few months and nothing as radical as this happens to you, you neither break up nor do you meet someone new, there is a theme really here about people in your life. And there will be somebody who either you want to spend a lot more time with because that person is of core value to you, or it'll be the reverse. And that person is someone you don't want in your life anymore. Okay, it's all about people. All right. So if we come to Sagittarius, we look now at the solar eclipse in the area of work and well-being, of service as well. And we look at the at Pluto in the 3rd house. So this has a lot to do with how you view your life. It's like, what are the aspects of my life that are a continuum? I know them. They form the struts of my life. I get up in the morning, I clean my teeth, I go to work. These are the opinions I have on the economy. These are the opinions I have on the government. These are the things I like to learn about, talk about. That's where this combination of Pluto and the solar eclipse is focusing. So it means, what does it mean? You can say it for me, can't you? There's a whole new outlook, a whole new rhythm and texture to life. Your routine may change radically. Why will it change? Maybe a job will change. The way you work will change. And so that means different routines. And it's not going to happen seamlessly. It's not like you're working towards something and, you know, it all happens according to your timetable. No, it doesn't. It'll come out of the blue. Something will happen. It will all change. Your whole routine will change. And what's also driving this change is your need to look a little differently out on the world and out on the small world of your life. I don't want to say you've been blind, but if we think about Pluto and the underworld and the darkness, there are things you've not been seeing or choosing not to see. And so you do have to see them at this point, around the time of the solar eclipse in square to Pluto. Your eyes are forced to be open. And when that happens, you can't see things the old way. It's just the new way. And maybe you can't really see how it's all going to work out. How is this going to work out? We don't know, because the Pluto journey takes time. And Pluto, of course, is just beginning its journey through the third house. It's going to take many, many years. And so there are all sorts of things you're going to be learning, and your environment will change because of all sorts of things outside your experience, as well as those things that you choose. So it could be that at this point in time, you become very passionate about something because the events happening to you cause you to say, I've got to become an activist about this. It is very powerful when we change our opinions. Most of us are very reluctant to change our opinions. We feel somehow we flip-flop if we don't stay on course. But you know, a healthy attitude, a healthy psyche is about recognizing when things have changed, and therefore we need to change. And it may also be for some of you Sagittarians that you are in the wrong job and you are working in the wrong way and for the wrong reasons. And maybe, just maybe, what can be revealed to you now is the ability to follow a course that seems more aligned to your destiny. And that couldn't be more important. So all of this is tied up in this Pluto solar eclipse event. If I come now to Capricorn, you, of course, have still got Pluto in your sign for part of this year. But in fact, on the day of the eclipse, the 20th of April, it will be in Aquarius. It will have moved out of your sign. But if you have a birthday towards the end of Capricorn time, that means sort of around 17th, 18th, even back as far as the 16th, 17th, 18th, 19th, which is the changeover date for Aquarius. You're going to feel the effects of Pluto this year. So a lot of things are changing for you. Pluto, of course, in your first house, it's about you personally. And it's about your personal, I suppose, I don't want to say values, because that's really more a second house thing. But there is a fudging of these two areas at the moment. So your value system is in the process of transformation. What you thought were important, your material values, they're no longer going to be the things that are important. You're going to find many more important things than the material values you thought were important. But it's also about you yourself. You're not the person you were. You're changing. And sometimes this can be a physical thing. We sometimes concentrate so much on the psychological, the spiritual, the psychic, that we forget the external world. And we have an appearance externally. And so our first house, you know, which is like being a Capricorn rising, you know, when we have our physical appearance, it changes. It can change for a variety of reasons. It can change because we lose a massive amount of weight, or we gain a lot of weight, or we even become pregnant. Our physical shape changes. And of course, when we age, things change. So for some Capricorns, this is definitely about how you look. And that's forging changes about how you think about yourself. And it's forging changes, I mean, Are you comfortable with the way you are changing? If so, it's a celebration. If you're not comfortable about the way you're changing, can you change it? These are all questions to ask yourself. But coming as it does really in the second house for you, and it's going to begin its journey full through the second house by the time we come to next January. It's about, what really constitutes value in yourself. And so you may change the way you earn money. You may decide that what you've been doing is no longer appropriate. You want to do something else. You want to radically change the way you earn money. You may radically change where you're living and how, your lifestyle, in fact, because it's not reflecting your values. And sometimes things happen to you so that things are taken away. Remember this idea of Pluto and, letting go. You sometimes have to let go with Pluto, and that does mean letting go of things that fill your material world. It's a good time to have a purge. It's a good time to have a declutter. If you do nothing else on this solar eclipse squaring Pluto, get rid of stuff. Take them to the charity shops. Take them into the landfill. Well, whatever you want to do, start clean. Again, I always say what we do externally sends a message to our psyches. And if we want to get rid of our baggage, the stuff that's holding us back in life, the thing that's sort of burdening us, then we can start with the external world and start getting rid of a lot of things we no longer need. It's letting go. And in as much as this is the financial area, Pluto moving through the second house, that it may be that a financial situation is no longer supportable. Maybe you've got too many commitments. The outgoings aren't balancing with the incomings. Something has to change. And it may be that you have to sell up, let go of the one thing that you thought was going to be there for life. You've got to sell up in order to cope with the finances. Or maybe there is a need to, really refinance and, maybe to get rid of all your debts and to start over. This could be something that Pluto inspires and on this solar eclipse. I think too, when we look at the solar eclipse, which is happening for you in the 5th house of the horoscope, it is about getting creative. And I think I seem to say this to Libra as well. This idea of getting creative is very, very important. We're creative with our solutions. We're creative with what we're doing and thinking outside the box, not thinking about the things we've always done. And Capricorn is a traditionalist. So really thinking outside the box for you is very radical. But this maybe is what the eclipse is doing in square to Pluto. It's forging you to think radically new solutions, behave in a radically different way, doing things radically differently. That may be the key to all of this Pluto solar eclipse process. So now we come to Aquarius, and of course Pluto is newly in your sign, and you may already have looked at my video about Pluto and Aquarius, so you know all there is to know about Pluto and Aquarius. But we learn more about what that Pluto process is when we get things like this solar eclipse squaring Pluto. And again, if you're an early Aquarian, which means you're born 19th, 20th, 21st, 22nd of January, then Pluto is absolutely on your sun. It's forging core change anyway. So now we have a solar eclipse at the base of your chart, which has everything to do with the roots of life, where you've come from, your home base, your past, your ancestors, your family, the roots of everything, the foundations of the future. How important is that? So you're getting a solar eclipse there, angling Pluto in your sign. So my goodness, especially these birthdays, everything could change for you, literally, where you live, who you're with, what you're doing, how you view your life. It's all up in the air. It's going to fall down and be different. You may still be the same person as you look at yourself in the mirror, but everything else is different. Now, as I said a little bit earlier, and I've said more than once on the course of this video, events that happen which have the signature of this eclipse on them don't have to be bad. This would be a mistake to think, I've got a terrible experience coming to me. Quite the reverse. It could be fabulous. It could be the most sensational experience of your life, the life-changing event in a really good way. The trouble is, Pluto is in there, and it says there's a cost to this, and there's a reason for this that you can't quite see just yet. But it is going to take a lot on your part to really use this experience in the way it's got to be used, and in a way that's healthy, spiritually, physically, every which way for you. It's a challenge to you personally to really deal with the weight of opportunity or the weight of events that happen to you personally. With the solar eclipse at the base of your chart, if we put Pluto out of the way just for a second, it says it's a new beginning here. So we could be looking at a new home or a new version of your old home. So lots of renovation and redecoration going on, but it's going to be radical. If previously you've had magnolia walls, they're going to be purple and green. It's because something needs changing in you, and by changing the colors on your wall even, that's, providing that change in an external setting. But it could be to do with the family, so that family relations are changing. Maybe there's people coming into the family, people going out of the family for one reason or another, divorce, you name it, this can happen. And even if it's divorce for brothers and sisters, or it can have an effect. Everything changes in terms of the family network. And this is probably where it's making its greatest effect. And you may notice around the time of the eclipse, even at Easter or past Easter, that there is a lot of stuff going on within the family. And maybe it's a bit discomforting. Maybe you don't feel very comfortable about it. But again, Aquarius, part of the reason here is that you're a fixed sign, and all the fixed signs don't really like change. And I know that this seems to go against the grain, because Aquarius is considered a very progressive sign, quite kind of bohemian, and, the brotherhood of man. It all seems to be very kind of open and free, but it's not really, because it's a fixed sign. So you can become very attached to your beliefs and very attached to the way things are if you've designed them that way. So the very nature of Pluto in square to the eclipse means you don't have much control over what's changing. What you will have control over, as always, is yourself, your emotions, how you react to things. What you do in the wake of events is all important. And it is very important to get a new look on something. Sometimes when an event happens and we don't really like it, we just shut it out of our minds. We can't get our heads around it. But once the emotions settle, the dust settles, we start to see it in a different light. And it's once we start seeing things in a different place, in a different light, we can start to get behind them. Something in your life needs changing at root level, Aquarius, and you're going to be shown what that is in these next few months. And it's a good thing, because things need to change. And if nothing else, this Pluto solar eclipse is saying, welcome to the new world. Welcome to the new age of Aquarius, your age. And it's time for big change. Pisces. Pisces, for you, the solar eclipse is in the 3rd house, and Pluto for you is in the 12th house. So this is complicated. Why wouldn't it be complicated? If we take the solar eclipse, first of all, it's about movement. It's about surroundings. It's about the things that make up your small world. And that's so important, isn't it? I mean, sometimes we don't care about what goes on in the big wide world. It's of no interest to us at all. Yeah, maybe we watch the news and we see what's happening in Iran or Australia, and we think, oh, that's interesting. But we're more concerned with our small world, our family, our neighbors, our neighborhood, our small world as what we do, what our life is about. So we've got a solar eclipse here, which says, hey, there's something new. What it really means is we need to look with a different pair of eyes at our surroundings, at our small world. It is entirely possible to miss something, isn't it? If we expect to see something in the same place every day, we no longer see it. It's there, we don't see it. But the purpose of this eclipse is for you to get to see it. Oh my goodness, I'm really looking at that now. Oh my goodness, this needs changing. That's just a metaphor, but it's helpful. It will be the right way to look at the things that happen to you, either at this period of time right now, really on and around the 20th, or on through May and June, even beyond there. And you'll remember it when it happens. Oh, I'm really looking at this now. I'm really seeing it. There's something that you took for granted, you now need to look at, and that's what's going to change. And when that changes, everything changes. It sounds small, but it's big. Now, Pluto for you in the 12th house is about all the changes that happen to us in consciousness. I mean, there is a lot of talk about this huge shift that humanity is experiencing, a shift in consciousness, which is why the divisions are so sharp between things. Let's just call it that. Let's not get pejorative here. But, you know, this is a long process. Pluto is going to take 20 years to go through the 12th house. So it's a long period of changing consciousness. But if we look at this booster that's happening, it's like a bomb goes off and all sorts of things change within your consciousness. How you look at people, how you look at your life. It'll be a time of huge awakenings of the, what is that biblical phrase, the mist coming out of your eyes? What is it? Well, suddenly you're really seeing. I'm going to talk about the idea of seeing things. And of course, if we have a spiritual paradigm that we work from, we have a belief system that supports us, well, it will support you through this period, or it may be that your spiritual paradigm needs to shift. It's not fit for purpose. You've been looking at things in a way that now needs to change. And there are all sorts of reasons for that. There's a lot going on with all sorts of things. There's a great interest in all sorts of spiritual matters, shamanism, astrology, you know, this huge developing interest, people fascinating about what you can't see, the unseen world. Wonderful as that is in principle, it's a very dangerous thing, because a little bit of knowledge or a little bit of experience of something isn't enough to give you a grounding in all of this. And I think what this Pluto solar eclipse is showing you is it must be real, that the development that you're going through at this time, spiritually, psychologically, whatever, has to be real. It's no good if it's just not, you know, it's not cooked, it's not grounded, which seems a strange way of looking at Pluto in the 12th and a solar eclipse in the 3rd, but it is about knowledge, and it is about consciousness, and it is about growth. And it is also about what imprisons you. You know, the 12th house is about institutions, and it's a house where one is contained. And the idea that we can be imprisoned by our circumstances and our views, and even our spiritual views. This has to be experienced and changed. So there is an awakening going on here, and it might actually have an effect on health as well. So this is a period to take note of any anomalies in your health. You know, they could be minor, get them checked out, because if nothing else, if you don't, you'll worry about them. And once we worry, all sorts of things tend to go wrong in our lives. So look at signs and signals. Look deep into the signs and signals, and you will get answers. Okay, here we come to Aries, the last sign I'm going to take us through on this grand tour of the zodiac. Now, Aries, for you, technically, this solar eclipse is in your sign, 29 degrees, 58 minutes of Aries. So if you have a birthday on the 19th, even the 20th of April, then this solar eclipse is massive because it's going to color your entire year. And if you have planets and points around 28, 29, Aries, Capricorn, Cancer, Libra, then, you know, this is going to be a very profound awakening, a very profound set of opportunities, even a new beginning with knobs on. That's what the solar eclipse is all about. And again, I hesitate to say on the day itself, but this birthday could be a significant birthday for you. April the 19th, 20th, if you're in Aries. I know technically the 20th is Taurus, but because of the movement of the sun, if you like, is variable, it changes. But if you're born at the end of the sign and you have a birthday in those latter signs, in the latter degrees of the sign, then it's setting an imprint on your whole year. So this is a pioneering year in no uncertain terms. You're going to go where you've never gone before, and for a variety of reasons. Not as you may be listening to me and thinking, oh yeah, I've always wanted to go to Australia. Yeah, maybe I'll go to the Andes. Well, maybe you will, and maybe that is what it means. But the bigger meaning is the metaphor, which means you're going where you've never gone before. You're having to do things you've never done before. You're being faced with situations you've never faced before. How you come through them, how you deal with them is up to you. It's your journey. We're also looking at where Pluto is in regard. The sun immediately moves into the second house. So we're also looking at things to do with money, to do with values and valuables. And, you know, do we ever really think about what our values are? I think sometimes when we're starting a relationship, we're interested in that. What are the other person's values? What are my values? And we get to air them a bit. But otherwise, I don't think we think about it a lot. We do think about our self-worth, because how people treat us, whether with respect and love and great value, which makes us feel great, or whether we're dismissed and made to feel like a tiny little something, you know, grain of sand, then that's not very nice. And so, you know, what Pluto and the solar eclipse offer is a radical review of our material values, our values per se, and our self-value. So that what happens to us makes us look at ourselves. And then we have to think, do I like that look or do I not? Have I now seen that my priorities and values aren't what they should be? This situation has shown me I need to reassess my values. Now, of course, in some cases, what could happen with Pluto in connection with the second house, or the solar eclipse sort of here, is that you could come into money, or you could lose a lot of money. You could lose income, or your income could suddenly change. So that's the presenting event. But it goes much deeper than that, because it's a question of your value too, is it? I mean, if people want to pay you a lot of money for what you do, you feel great. You feel, oh, I'm so worth this. But if they don't, your value's on the floor, and it affects you deeply. So in a way, you've got to cut aside other people's opinions of you and think about how you value yourself and the things that you consider are your assets, both your material assets and other kinds of assets. And that's really under a transformational influence. If you lose a possession, if you're forced to let go of something, a property, a house, something, does that reflect on you as a person? It shouldn't really. It's just a material thing. But on the other hand, it causes you to reassess you as a person and your real value. So the things that go at this time, or the things that are thrown up in the air, come down in different places and are reformed, they may have to do with other things in life, external situations, but what they throw up is what it does to your self-value. It's what it's all about. And when we think too of where Pluto is in this case, in the 11th house, collaborations come into this as well, business enterprises, and we've been talking about finance. So it may be that a business isn't thriving and maybe it has to be let go of because it's not thriving and you need to start again. Or it may be that a team that you've been part of is no longer functioning. The team isn't working. So it has to be dropped or completely reformed. These are things that play into what's happening at this eclipse. And, you know, I could be speaking to you now and it's already very much part of your experience, or it may be not there, but it will be shortly. It's about the things that happen to you right now. They shatter something in your life. It's shattered or it's gone. And you think, oh, what does that say about me? What does it say? And it's that coming to self-knowledge and self-value that is the journey that's inspired by this solar eclipse and Pluto. So Aries, that is my last zodiac sign. And to all of you, you know, having gone through this, you know, and I think I said this at the beginning of the video, we're all going through it. And I think we forget that. We look out on other people's lives and we think, oh, he, she is so happy. How lucky is that person? How amazing is that? But we don't know because behind the screens of their life, I promise you, the swamp is being drained. And there are some not very nice smells coming up from what's been festering. It's across the board, but it is the only way for all of us. And I don't often talk about humanity because I like to look at situations in life because it's a material world. We're in the real world and we have real problems that require dealing with. But occasionally I'll step out of that and look at the bigger picture of how humanity is moving forward. This is the darkness that we have to go through. And it's hard work, for anxiety making for all of us, but it's necessary. And we're going to come out of it clean and clear. Okay, I don't know how long the time frame is, but I tell you something. The events around this time, the 20th of April, forward and back from there, eye-opening in all respects. So thank you for watching, everybody. Thank you for your support. You're all amazing. Really, thank you. And I look forward to seeing you again on my next video. Bye for now.